The golden morning light streamed through the massive windows of the Madison estate, casting long shadows across the marble floors of the dining room. Marcus Madison sat at the head of the enormous oak table, his fingers dancing across his phone screen as he checked the latest stock prices. At 52, he had built an empire that spanned 3 continents, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar corporation that employed thousands of people worldwide. The dining room itself was a testament to his success. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, their light catching the edges of expensive artwork that lined the walls. The table could easily seat 20 people, though it rarely hosted more than Marcus and his 15-year-old daughter Emma these days. His wife Catherine had passed away 3 years ago, leaving behind a void that no amount of money could fill. Emma sat across from her father, her school bag packed and ready by her chair. She had inherited her mother's gentle eyes and warm smile, though lately, Marcus noticed she seemed more withdrawn. The prestigious private school she attended demanded excellence, and she worked hard to maintain her grades while dealing with the social pressures that came with being the daughter of one of the city's wealthiest men. "Good morning, Mr. Madison," came a soft voice from the kitchen doorway. Rosa Martinez stepped into the dining room, carrying a silver tray laden with breakfast dishes. At 45, she had been working for the Madison family for over 8 years, having started when Emma was just 7 years old. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the simple black uniform that Marcus required of all household staff. Rosa had come to America from El Salvador 15 years ago, leaving behind a life of poverty and violence in search of better opportunities for herself and her family. She had worked multiple jobs to put herself through English classes and culinary school, eventually landing the position with the Madisons through a domestic agency. The job provided steady income and health benefits, something precious for a single mother supporting 2 children back home. "The usual breakfast, sir," Rosa said quietly, setting down plates of perfectly prepared eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, and artisanal pastries from the city's most expensive bakery. She had learned Marcus's preferences through years of careful observation, noting how he preferred his coffee strong and black, his eggs cooked to exactly 4 minutes, and his toast lightly buttered on only one side. Marcus barely glanced up from his phone. "The coffee is too weak again," he said without tasting it. "How many times do I have to tell you? I don't have time to drink watered-down nonsense." Rosa's face remained calm, though Emma noticed the slight tightening around her eyes. "I'll make a fresh pot immediately, sir," Rosa replied, reaching for the coffee cup. "Don't bother," Marcus waved dismissively. "I'll grab something decent on the way to the office." He finally looked up from his phone, his sharp blue eyes scanning the breakfast spread with obvious disapproval. "And what is this supposed to be? The eggs look overcooked, and these pastries are probably stale." Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had watched this same scene play out countless times over the years, and it never got easier to witness. Rosa had always been kind to her, helping with homework when Marcus was traveling, listening to her problems when she needed someone to talk to, and making sure she felt cared for in a house that often felt too big and too empty. "The pastries are fresh from Delacroix Bakery, sir," Rosa explained gently. "I picked them up this morning at 6, just as you prefer." Marcus snorted. "Fresh? They taste like cardboard. Maybe if you actually knew something about quality food instead of whatever peasant cooking you grew up with, you'd understand the difference." The words hung in the air like a slap. Rosa's shoulders tensed slightly, but her professional demeanor never wavered. She had endured worse comments over the years, each one chipping away at her dignity, but never breaking her resolve. She needed this job, and Marcus Madison knew it. Emma put down her fork, her appetite suddenly gone. She watched Rosa's face carefully, seeing the hurt that flickered across her features before being quickly masked. "Dad," she began hesitantly, but Marcus cut her off. "Emma, eat your breakfast. You'll be late for school." He turned back to Rosa with cold efficiency. "Clear this mess away and try to do better tomorrow. I'm paying you enough to expect competence." Rosa began collecting the barely touched dishes, her movements precise and professional despite the humiliation. As she worked, Marcus continued his critique with the casual cruelty of someone accustomed to having his every word treated as law. "You know, I've been thinking about the household budget," he said, still focused on his phone. Maybe it's time to reevaluate some positions. There are services that deliver restaurant-quality meals. Might be more cost-effective than maintaining someone who clearly doesn't understand fine dining. Emma's heart sank. She knew her father's threats weren't empty. He had fired household staff before for much smaller infractions, each dismissal delivered with the same cold calculation he used in business. The thought of Rosa losing her job because of his impossible standards made her stomach churn. Rosa paused in her clearing, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for Marcus's untouched plate. "I understand your concerns, Mr. Madison," she said quietly. "Perhaps you could let me know what specific improvements you'd like to see." Marcus finally looked directly at her, his expression a mixture of annoyance and superiority. "What I'd like to see is food that doesn't taste like it came from a street vendor in whatever third-world country you crawled out of. But I suppose that's asking too much from someone with your background." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks as she watched Rosa's professional mask slip for just a moment, revealing the pain beneath. In that instant, something shifted inside Emma. She had been quiet for too long, watching her father's behavior without speaking up, and she suddenly realized that her silence made her complicit in his cruelty. Rosa had been more than just household staff to Emma over the years. When her mother died, Rosa had been the one who sat with her through the long, tearful nights. She had taught Emma to braid her hair, helped her practice Spanish for school, and shared stories about her own children back in El Salvador. Rosa had pictures of her son Miguel, who was studying engineering at university, and her daughter Sophia, who wanted to become a teacher. Every month, Rosa sent most of her earnings home to support their education and help care for her aging mother. "I should go prepare for the day," Emma said quietly, standing from the table. But instead of heading toward the door, she moved closer to Rosa, who was still frozen with Marcus's plate in her hands. Marcus was already gathering his things, checking his watch with the impatience of a man whose time was worth thousands of dollars per minute. "Rosa, I want you to think seriously about whether this position is right for you," he said as he straightened his tie. "I won't tolerate mediocrity in my home any more than I would in my business." Emma watched her father's callous dismissal of someone who had dedicated years of loyal service to their family. She thought about all the times Rosa had gone above and beyond her duties, staying late when Marcus traveled to make sure Emma wasn't alone, preparing special meals when Emma was sick, and maintaining the house with meticulous care even when faced with constant criticism. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, Marcus announced, glancing at his expensive watch. "Make sure you're ready, Emma." As he moved toward the door, Emma made a decision that would change everything. The weight of years of witnessed injustice suddenly felt unbearable, and she knew she couldn't let this moment pass without speaking up. Her mother had always taught her to stand up for what was right, even when it was difficult, especially when it was difficult. "Dad, wait," Emma called out, her voice stronger than she felt. Marcus paused at the doorway, clearly annoyed by the delay. "What is it, Emma? We don't have time for this." Emma looked at Rosa, who was watching her with confused concern, then back at her father. "I need to tell you something about the food." "What about it?" Marcus asked impatiently. "We've already established that it's substandard." Emma took a deep breath, feeling her heart pound against her ribs. "Actually, it's not." Marcus's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Excuse me. The food isn't substandard, Dad. It's incredible." Emma's voice grew steadier as she continued. "Rosa is an amazing cook. The problem isn't her cooking." "Emma, what are you talking about?" Marcus demanded, his tone sharpening with irritation. Emma looked directly into her father's eyes, seeing her own reflection in them, and realizing how much she had inherited his features, but hoping she had inherited more of her mother's heart. "The problem is that you've forgotten what real food tastes like because you've been so focused on impressing people that you can't taste anything that doesn't come with a famous name attached to it." The room fell completely silent. Rosa stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock and worry. Marcus's face began to darken with anger, but Emma wasn't finished. "Every morning, Rosa gets up at 5 to make sure everything is perfect for us. She studies cooking magazines and watches online tutorials to learn new recipes. She spends her own money to buy the best ingredients because she cares about doing a good job. And every morning, You criticize her without even tasting the food properly. Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet when he spoke. Emma, you're out of line. No, Dad, I don't think I am. Emma's hands were shaking now, but her voice remained steady. I think you're out of line. Rosa has been part of our family for 8 years. She took care of Mom when she was sick, and she's taken care of me every day since Mom died. She deserves better than this. Rosa stepped forward, her face pale with concern. Miss Emma, please, it's okay. You don't need to. Yes, I do need to. Emma interrupted gently but firmly. Because someone needs to tell the truth around here. Marcus's business phone began buzzing insistently, but for the first time in years, he ignored it completely. His daughter had never challenged him like this before, and he found himself at a loss for words. The confident authority that served him so well in boardrooms seemed inadequate against the quiet conviction in his 15-year-old daughter's voice. Do you even remember what Mom used to say about treating people? Emma continued, her voice soft but unwavering. She said that how we treat people who can't fight back shows who we really are inside. She said that kindness costs nothing but means everything. The mention of Catherine hit Marcus like a physical blow. He could suddenly hear his late wife's voice, gentle but firm, reminding him that wealth was a privilege that came with responsibility. Catherine had always insisted that they treat their household staff with respect and dignity, not because it was required, but because it was right. Emma saw the impact of her words in her father's expression and pressed on. Rosa makes my favorite pancakes on Sunday mornings, the ones that taste exactly like the ones Mom used to make. She learned the recipe by watching Mom cook, and she's been making them for me every week for 3 years because she knows they make me feel close to Mom again. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. He had no idea about the Sunday pancakes. He was usually gone by the time Emma woke up on weekends, off to the golf course or the office or another business meeting that seemed important at the time, but now felt meaningless in comparison to this moment. She helps me with my Spanish homework, Emma continued, tears beginning to gather in her eyes. And when I had that terrible flu last winter, she sat up with me all night making sure I was okay because you were in Singapore on business. She didn't have to do that. It wasn't in her job description. She did it because she cares about me. Rosa wiped at her own eyes, overwhelmed by Emma's defense of her. In 8 years of working for the family, no one had ever stood up for her like this. She had accepted the criticism and the casual cruelty as part of the job, never expecting anyone to notice her efforts or acknowledge her humanity. And you want to know something else about Rosa's kooky? Marcus Madison stood in his dining room doorway, feeling as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. The confident businessman who commanded respect in boardrooms around the world suddenly felt small under his daughter's unwavering gaze. The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of unspoken truths and accumulated hurt. Rosa remained frozen near the table, still holding the breakfast plate, her professional training warring with the urge to flee from what felt like a family crisis she had inadvertently caused. She had witnessed many arguments in wealthy households over the years, but never one where she was the central figure, and never one that felt so raw and honest. Emma, Marcus finally said, his voice quieter than usual. You don't understand the pressures. What pressures, Dad? Emma interrupted, her earlier fear replaced by a fierce protectiveness she hadn't known she possessed. The pressure to treat people badly just because you pay them? The pressure to forget basic human decency because you have money? Marcus felt his automatic defenses rising, the same walls he built in business negotiations when someone challenged his authority. But, looking at his daughter's face, seeing the disappointment and hurt there, he found those defenses crumbling before they could fully form. That's not fair, he said. But, even to his own ears, the words sounded weak. Isn't it? Emma stepped closer to Rosa, a gesture of solidarity that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. When was the last time you said thank you to Rosa? When was the last time you asked about her family, or noticed when she stayed late, or acknowledged that she's a person with feelings? The questions hit Marcus like physical blows. He tried to remember the last time he had treated Rosa as anything more than a service provider, and the realization that he couldn't was deeply uncomfortable. When had he become the kind of man who could be cruel to someone simply because he held power over their livelihood? Rosa finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Emma, please, it's really okay. Your father has every right to expect excellence. I understand that my cooking might not meet his standards. No, it's not okay, Emma said firmly, turning to face Rosa with tears in her eyes. And your cooking is wonderful. You shouldn't have to apologize for being good at your job just because someone else refuses to see it. Marcus watched the interaction between his daughter and Rosa, seeing for the first time the genuine bond between them. Emma's fierce defense of Rosa revealed a relationship that had been developing right under his nose, one built on mutual respect and affection. How had he missed something so important in his own home? His phone buzzed again, and this time the sound seemed jarring and inappropriate in the emotional intensity of the moment. Without thinking, he reached for it, the automatic response of a man accustomed to treating business as the most important thing in his life. Dad, don't, Emma said sharply. For once in your life, don't answer that phone. This is more important than whatever meeting or deal you're rushing off to. Marcus's hand froze halfway to his pocket. The rebuke stung because it was accurate. How many important moments had he missed because of his obsession with work? How many times had he chosen business over family, deadlines over relationships, profit over people? The car is probably here, he said weakly, but he made no move toward the door. Then, let it wait, Emma replied. Because we're not done talking about this. Rosa shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to remove herself from what felt like an increasingly private family matter. Perhaps I should give you both some privacy, she said quietly. No, Emma said immediately. You're part of this conversation, Rosa. This affects you too. Marcus found himself studying Rosa's face, really looking at her for the first time in years. He saw the lines of fatigue around her eyes, evidence of early mornings and long days. He saw the careful way she held herself, the practiced neutrality of someone accustomed to criticism. He saw the hands that had prepared thousands of meals for his family, hands that were calloused from work but gentle in their movements. How long have you been with us, Rosa? He asked suddenly. Rosa looked surprised by the question. 8 years next month, sir. 8 years, Marcus repeated slowly. And in all that time, have I ever asked about your family? Your life outside this house? Rosa's eyes flickered with uncertainty. You've always been focused on your important work, sir? I understand that you have many responsibilities. That's not what I asked, Marcus said, his voice softer now. I asked if I've ever shown interest in you as a person. The silence that followed was answer enough. Rosa's professional demeanor couldn't quite hide the sadness in her eyes, and Marcus felt something twist in his chest that might have been shame. Emma watched her father's face, seeing something she hadn't seen in years. For a moment, he looked less like the intimidating businessman and more like the father she remembered from her early childhood, before success had hardened him into someone she barely recognized. You have children, Marcus said to Rosa, and it wasn't a question but rather the tentative beginning of a conversation he should have started years ago. Yes, sir, Rosa replied carefully. My son Miguel is 23. He's studying mechanical engineering at the University of San Salvador. My daughter Sofia is 19, and she's training to be a teacher. And they're still in El Salvador? Yes, sir. They live with my mother. I send money home to help with their education and to care for her. She's 78 now and has diabetes. Marcus felt the weight of Rosa's sacrifice settling over him. She had left her children, her elderly mother, everything familiar, to work in a foreign country where she faced daily reminders that she was considered less than. And she had done it all so her children could have better opportunities than she'd had. That must be difficult, he said quietly, being so far from them. Rosa's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing a glimpse of the deep loneliness she carried. Sometimes it is very hard, yes. But they understand why I'm here. They're proud of the work I do. As they should be, Emma said firmly, shooting her father a meaningful look. Marcus thought about his own relationship with Emma, how his work often took him away from home, and how she had grown up largely in the care of others. But at least he had the freedom to come and go as he pleased, the luxury of choice that his wealth provided. Rosa had made her sacrifice out of necessity, not ambition. Do you get to see them often? Marcus asked. I go home once a year for Christmas, Rosa replied. Sometimes I can stay for 2 weeks if the family doesn't need me. The family doesn't need you, Emma corrected gently. We want you here because you're important to us. But you should be able to see your family whenever you want. Marcus felt another crack in the armor he had built around his emotions. 2 weeks a year with her children. 2 weeks out of 52 to spend with the people she loved most in the world. The sacrifice was staggering, and he had never even considered it. What do your children want to do with their education? He found himself asking. Rosa's face lit up with unmistakable pride. Miguel wants to design bridges and buildings that can help his community. There's so much development needed in our region, and he wants to be part of building a better future. Sophia has always loved children and learning. She wants to teach in the rural areas where there aren't enough schools. They sound remarkable, Marcus said, and he meant it. They are, Rosa said simply. Everything I do is for them, to give them chances I never had. Emma watched her father's face as Rosa spoke about her children. She could see him processing information that challenged everything he thought he knew about their housekeeper. Rosa wasn't just someone who cleaned and cooked. She was a mother who had made extraordinary sacrifices for her children's futures, a woman with dreams and fears and hopes just like anyone else. Rosa, Marcus said slowly, I owe you an apology. Rosa looked startled. Sir, I've been treating you terribly, Marcus continued, the words feeling strange and difficult in his mouth. Not just this morning, but for years. You've been dedicated and professional and kind to my daughter, and I've repaid that with criticism and disrespect. Mr. Madison, you don't need to. Yes, I do need to, Marcus interrupted. Because Emma is right. You deserve better than what I've been giving you. Emma felt her heart beating faster. This was more vulnerability than she had seen from her father since her mother's death, more humanity than he had shown in years of cold efficiency and business-focused living. I lost my way somewhere, Marcus continued, his voice growing quieter. After Catherine died, I threw myself into work because it was easier than dealing with the pain. But somewhere along the line, I forgot how to be decent to people. I forgot the things my wife tried to teach me about kindness and respect. Rosa's eyes filled with tears as she remembered Catherine Madison, a woman who had treated her with genuine warmth and friendship. Your wife was a very good woman, sir. She always made time to ask about my family, to listen when I was worried about them. She would be ashamed of me right now, Marcus said, and the admission seemed to physically hurt him. She would be ashamed of the way I've treated you, and she would be proud of Emma for standing up to me. Emma felt tears threatening again. This was the father she remembered from her childhood, the one who had played games with her and read bedtime stories, the one who had loved her mother with obvious devotion and treated everyone around them with respect. It's not too late, Dad, she said softly. It's not too late to be the person Mom knew you could be. Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing Catherine's compassion reflected in her young face, and felt something shift inside him. The walls he had built around his heart after his wife's death had protected him from pain, but they had also isolated him from everything good in his life. Rosa, he said, turning back to her, would you be willing to have breakfast with Emma and me? As our guest, not our employee. Rosa looked confused and uncertain. I don't understand, sir. 3 weeks had passed since that transformational morning in the Madison dining room, and the atmosphere in the house had changed completely. Marcus found himself waking up earlier each day, not to rush off to business meetings, but to spend time in the kitchen with Rosa and Emma before the day began. What had started as an awkward attempt at redemption had evolved into something neither he nor Rosa had expected, a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared stories. The changes hadn't been immediate or easy. The first few mornings after Marcus's apology had been stilted and uncomfortable, with Rosa unsure how to navigate this new dynamic, and Marcus struggling to break habits of indifference and criticism that had taken years to develop. But Emma had served as a bridge between them, her natural warmth and determination helping both adults find their way to a new understanding. This particular morning found Marcus sitting at the kitchen counter, a place he would never have imagined himself just a month ago, watching Rosa prepare what had become their daily ritual. Breakfast made together rather than served by one to the others. The formal dining room with its crystal and silver had been abandoned in favor of the warm, lived-in kitchen where conversations flowed more naturally. So Miguel called yesterday, Rosa said as she whisked eggs for what Marcus had learned were her grandmother's secret recipe, scrambled eggs. He got the internship with the construction company in San Salvador. He'll be working on the new hospital project. That's wonderful, Marcus said, and meant it. Over the past weeks, he had become genuinely invested in the lives of Rosa's children, asking for updates and celebrating their achievements as if they were his own family's successes. That hospital will serve thousands of people. He should be proud to be part of building something so important. Rosa smiled, her face lighting up with maternal pride. He is very excited and nervous. It's his first real job in his field. First jobs are always scary. Emma chimed in from where she sat reviewing homework at the kitchen table. I remember when I started high school, I was terrified I wouldn't fit in or that the work would be too hard. And now look at you, Rosa said warmly. Top of your class and president of the student council. Miguel could learn from your confidence. Marcus watched this easy exchange between Rosa and Emma, marveling at how natural their relationship had always been while he had remained obliviously on the outside. The realization of how much he had missed, how much life had been happening in his own home while he focused on external achievements, still stung. But he was learning to transform that regret into motivation for change. Rosa, Marcus said carefully, have you given any thought to what we discussed last week? Rosa paused in her cooking, uncertainty flickering across her face. Marcus had proposed something that seemed too good to be true, and she was still struggling to believe he was serious. You mean about visiting Miguel and Sophia? Not just visiting, Marcus corrected gently. About bringing them here. For an extended visit. Maybe for Miguel's winter break from university. Rosa set down her whisk, overwhelmed by the offer. The idea of seeing her children for more than just her brief annual Christmas visit seemed like an impossible dream. But Marcus had been full of surprises lately, and this was perhaps the biggest one yet. Mr. Madison, that's very generous, but the expense isn't an issue, Marcus interrupted. I've already spoken with my travel coordinator. We can arrange first-class flights for both of them, and they can stay in the guest wing for as long as you'd like. Miguel can visit some engineering firms here, maybe make some professional connections. Sophia can see American schools, get ideas for her own teaching career. Emma looked up from her homework with excitement. Really, Dad? They could really come here. If Rosa agrees, Marcus said, watching Rosa's face carefully. I know it's a big decision. Having family visit when you're working can be complicated. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time since Marcus had known her, they were tears of joy rather than hidden pain or frustration. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Emma urged. I can't wait to meet them. Rosa talks about them so much. I feel like I already know them. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the coffee Rosa had made perfectly to his preferences, as she now did every morning without any complaint or criticism from him. This feeling was something he had almost forgotten existed. The simple pleasure of making someone happy without expecting anything in return. There's something else, Marcus said, his voice taking on the slightly nervous tone he got when discussing something particularly important. I've been thinking about your situation here, Rosa. About your family being so far away. Rosa tensed slightly, old fears surfacing despite the recent changes in their relationship. Years of employment insecurity had taught her to be wary when employers wanted to discuss her situation. What do you mean? She asked carefully. I mean that I think we should explore options for bringing your whole family here permanently, Marcus said. If that's something you'd want. The kitchen fell completely silent except for the soft bubbling of coffee in the pot. Rosa stared at Marcus as if he had just spoken in a foreign language, while Emma's homework was completely forgotten as she processed what her father had just offered. Permanently, Rosa whispered. I've been doing some research, Marcus continued, warming to his subject. There are visa options we could explore, investment visas that could help Miguel and Sophia come to the United States for their education and future careers. I have lawyers who specialize in immigration law, and I have connections that could help make the process smoother. Dad, Emma breathed. Are you serious? Completely serious, Marcus replied. Rosa, you've spent 8 years taking care of my family while sacrificing time with your own. That's not right. I can't give you back those years, but I can try to make sure you don't have to choose between your job and your children anymore. Rosa sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Marcus was offering. "I don't understand why you would do this for me," she said shakily. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer carefully. "Because my daughter taught me something important a few weeks ago. She taught me that the measure of a person isn't how much money they make or how successful their business is. It's how they treat the people who matter to them." He looked directly at Rosa, his expression serious and sincere. "You matter, Rosa. You matter to Emma, and you matter to me. What you've done for our family, the sacrifices you've made, the love you've shown my daughter when I was too busy to show it myself, that deserves more than just a salary. But the cost is nothing compared to what you've given us," Marcus interrupted. "Do you have any idea what it would have cost to hire a team of professionals to provide the care and attention you've given Emma? A personal chef, a housekeeper, a tutor, a companion, a counselor. You've been all of those things and more." Emma reached across the table to take Rosa's hand. "Say yes, Rosa. Please say yes. I want to meet Sophia and Miguel, and I want them to be part of our family too." Rosa looked at Emma's eager face, then at Marcus, trying to reconcile this generous, thoughtful man with the cold, critical employer she had worked for just weeks ago. "What changed?" she asked quietly. "Why are you doing this now?" Marcus considered the question, thinking back to that morning when Emma had confronted him about his treatment of Rosa. "I lost myself after Catherine died," he said honestly. "I was so angry at the world for taking her away from us that I forgot how to see the good in anything or anyone. I became someone she wouldn't have recognized, someone she wouldn't have liked." He paused, looking around the warm kitchen that had become the heart of their home. "But Emma reminded me that Catherine isn't really gone as long as we keep her values alive. Catherine believed in taking care of people, in using whatever advantages we had to help others. She would have done this for you years ago if she were still here. She was a very special woman," Rosa said softly. "She was," Marcus agreed. "And she raised our daughter to be just as special. Emma has more wisdom at 15 than I had at 52. Emma blushed at the compliment, but didn't let it distract from the main issue. "So what do you think, Rosa? Will you let Dad help bring your family here?" Rosa wiped at her eyes with the corner of her apron. "I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever dreamed possible." "Say you'll think about it," Marcus suggested. "Talk to Miguel and Sophia about what they want. This is a big decision that affects their lives too. But know that whatever you decide, your job here is secure. That's not contingent on whether you accept my help or not. And either way," Emma added, "you're part of our family now. That's not going to change." 6 months had transformed the Madison house into something unrecognizable from its former cold grandeur. The change wasn't just in the atmosphere, but in the very structure of daily life. What had once been a sterile showcase of wealth had become a warm home filled with laughter, conversation, and the comfortable chaos that comes with a real family. Miguel Martinez stood in the guest wing's spacious bedroom, video calling his engineering professor back in El Salvador, while Sophia sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by colorful children's books that Emma had helped her collect for her teaching research. Both young adults bore a strong resemblance to their mother, with Miguel inheriting Rosa's determined eyes and Sophia sharing her gentle smile. "The structural engineering program at the university here is incredible," Miguel was explaining to his professor, his English heavily accented but confident. "They have equipment I've only seen in textbooks, and the professors have worked on projects all over the world." Through the open door, the sound of voices drifted up from the kitchen below, where Rosa was teaching Marcus and Emma to make pupusas, the traditional Salvadoran dish that had become a weekly tradition in the house. "Mija, you need to use more pressure with the masa," Rosa was saying, her laughter mixing with Marcus's frustrated grumbling as he struggled to form the corn dough properly. "I can negotiate billion-dollar mergers, but apparently I can't make a simple flatbread," Marcus muttered, causing Emma to burst into giggles. Sophia looked up from her books at the sound, still marveling at the transformation that had occurred in her mother's life. When Rosa had first called to tell her children about Marcus's offer to bring them to America, Sophia had been suspicious. Years of hearing about her mother's difficult working conditions had made her wary of employers who suddenly became generous. "Miguel," Sophia said quietly, "do you really think Mama should trust Mr. Madison's promises about helping us immigrate permanently?" Miguel paused his video call and looked at his sister thoughtfully. Over the past 3 months of their extended visit, he had watched Marcus carefully, looking for signs of the callous businessman their mother had described in her letters. Instead, he had found a man who seemed genuinely committed to making amends for years of thoughtless behavior. "I think people can change," Miguel said finally. "And I think Emma changed him. You've seen how he looks at Mama now, how he listens when she talks. It's not the same person Mama described to us before." Sophia nodded slowly. She had seen it too. The way Marcus made sure Rosa sat down to eat with the family instead of serving and cleaning while they enjoyed their meals. The way he asked about her day and actually listened to the answers. The way he had learned to appreciate not just her cooking but her intelligence and her stories. "The immigration lawyer he hired is legitimate," Miguel continued. "I researched her myself. She's handled cases like ours before, and she seems confident about our chances." Through the window, Sophia could see Marcus and Emma in the garden, where Rosa had started a small herb garden to grow the cilantro and chili she needed for authentic Salvadoran cooking. Marcus was carefully watering the plants while Emma deadhead flowers, both of them moving with the easy cooperation of people who had learned to work together. "It still doesn't feel real," Sophia admitted. "The idea that we could all be together, that Miguel and I could study here while Mama doesn't have to choose between her family and her job." Miguel understood his sister's disbelief. They had grown up expecting very little from life, knowing that their mother's sacrifices were the only thing standing between them and the poverty that trapped so many of their neighbors. The idea of having opportunities beyond their wildest dreams seemed too good to be true. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation, and Emma's voice called out cheerfully, "Miguel, Sophia, dinner's ready." And Dad actually managed to make a pupusa that looks like food instead of abstract art. The siblings exchanged amused looks. Emma's easy affection had been one of the most surprising aspects of their visit. Rather than the spoiled rich girl they had half expected, they had found someone who was genuinely interested in their culture, their lives, and their dreams. As they made their way downstairs, Sophia marveled again at how different the house felt from her expectations. Yes, it was obviously expensive. The artwork on the walls probably cost more than her entire village made in a year, but it didn't feel cold or intimidating. Rosa's touches were everywhere now. Colorful woven placemats from home on the dining table, plants thriving in every sunny window, family photos that included pictures of Miguel and Sophia alongside Emma's school portraits. In the kitchen, they found Marcus carefully flipping pupusas on the griddle while Rosa supervised with amused patience. His expensive business shirt had been replaced with a simple t-shirt, and there was flour in his carefully styled hair. "Miguel, you have to see this," Emma called out, pointing at Marcus's latest culinary creation. "Dad's pupusa actually looks like it's supposed to." Marcus held up the golden brown disc with obvious pride. "Only took me 15 tries to figure out how to keep the filling from leaking out." "Practice makes perfect," Rosa said warmly. "My grandmother always said that cooking with love takes time to learn, but once you know how, you never forget." Sophia watched the easy interaction between her mother and Marcus, still adjusting to seeing Rosa treated as an equal rather than a servant. Over the months of their visit, she had seen Marcus seek out Rosa's opinions on everything from redecorating the house to business decisions that affected the household staff he employed in his other properties. "So," Marcus said as they all gathered around the kitchen table, "I heard back from the immigration attorney today." The room fell quiet, all attention focused on Marcus's words. The paperwork for Miguel and Sophia's student visas had been submitted months ago, but the process was complex and uncertain. "She's confident that the student visas will be approved," Marcus continued, smiling at the relief that washed over Rosa's face. "Miguel's been accepted to the engineering program, and Sophia's application to the education graduate program was approved with a partial scholarship." "Scholarship?" Sophia gasped. "But I thought I may have mentioned your volunteer work with rural literacy programs in your application essay," Marcus said with feigned innocence. "And I may have had some conversations with people I know at the university about promising international students." Miguel shook his head in amazement. "Mr. Madison, we can never repay you for this." "You don't need to repay me," Marcus replied firmly. "But There is something I want from all of you. Rosa tensed slightly, old habits of wariness still surfacing despite months of kindness. I want you to call me Marcus, he continued. We're family now. The formal stuff doesn't feel right anymore. Emma beamed at her father's words. The transformation in him had been gradual but profound, and moments like this reminded her of the man he had been when her mother was alive, the father who had read bedtime stories and attended every school play. Family, Rosa repeated softly, the word carrying weight and wonder. Family, Marcus confirmed. Which brings me to the other thing the attorney told me. She thinks we have a strong case for permanent residency applications, especially with Miguel's engineering skills and Sophia's educational background. It might take a couple of years, but the pathway is there. Sophia felt tears threatening. You mean we could really stay? All of us together. If that's what you want, Marcus said. I know it's a big decision. You'd be leaving everything familiar, starting over in a new country. I don't want you to feel pressured. Miguel looked at his mother, seeing the hope and fear warring in her expression. Mama, what do you think? Rosa was quiet for a long moment, looking around the table at faces that had become dear to her. Emma, who had grown into the daughter she had never had. Marcus, who had surprised her by becoming the friend she had never expected. And her own children, bright and full of potential, sitting in a kitchen in America discussing opportunities that would have been impossible dreams just a year ago. I think, she said slowly, that sometimes life gives us chances we never imagined. And when those chances come from people who care about us, maybe we should be brave enough to take them. Emma reached over and squeezed Rosa's hand. So you'll stay? Really stay? We'll try, Rosa said, her voice strengthening with conviction. If Miguel and Sophia want to build their lives here, then, yes, we'll try. Marcus felt the familiar warmth that had become his favorite feeling, the satisfaction of using his resources to create possibilities rather than just accumulate wealth. There's one more thing, he said. I've been thinking about opening a foundation, something focused on supporting immigrant families, helping people who are in situations similar to what Rosa faced when she first came here. A foundation? Emma asked, intrigued. I want to use some of our resources to help other families stay together while they pursue better opportunities, Marcus explained. Legal assistance, educational support, maybe even small business loans for people who want to start their own companies. Rosa stared at him in amazement. You would do 2 years had passed since that life-changing morning in the Madison dining room, and the house that had once echoed with loneliness now hummed with the constant activity of a truly blended family. The formal dining room had been converted into a study space where Miguel worked on his engineering projects while Sophia prepared lesson plans for her student teaching position at the local elementary school. The kitchen had become the heart of the home, where 4 languages were spoken daily as Emma practiced her Spanish. Miguel improved his English. Sophia learned French for her education studies. And Rosa translated between all of them when conversations got complicated. Marcus stood in his home office, but instead of reviewing profit reports, he was reading updates from the Martinez Family Foundation, the organization that had grown from his simple desire to help one family into a comprehensive support system for immigrant families across the state. The foundation now employed 15 full-time staff members, including Miguel as a part-time engineering consultant for families starting construction businesses, and had helped over 200 families navigate the complex immigration system while staying together. Dad, are you ready? Emma called from downstairs. At 17 now, she had grown into a confident young woman who balanced her senior year of high school with volunteering at the foundation and serving as an unofficial big sister to Sophia, despite being 2 years younger. Coming, Marcus called back, straightening his tie one last time before heading downstairs. Today was special. It was the day the Martinez family would finally receive their permanent resident cards, the culmination of 2 years of paperwork, interviews, and waiting. In the living room, he found Rosa pacing nervously while Sophia tried to calm her down, and Miguel reviewed the documents they would need at the immigration office one final time. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, addressing invitations for the celebration party they had planned for that evening. Rosa, you're going to wear a hole in the carpet, Marcus said gently. Everything is going to be fine. What if something goes wrong? Rosa worried. What if they change their minds? What if the paperwork isn't right? Marcus took her hands in his, something that would have been unthinkable during his earlier, colder years. Rosa, look at me. You've done everything right. Miguel graduated with honors from engineering school and already has a job offer from the best firm in the city. Sophia is finishing her teaching certification with perfect grades. You've been nothing but an exemplary resident. There's no reason for them to deny your applications. Besides, Emma added cheerfully, if they even try to cause problems, Dad will probably buy the immigration building and fire everyone who's mean to you. I would, Marcus said seriously, causing everyone to laugh despite Rosa's nerves. The transformation in Marcus had been gradual, but complete. The man who had once measured his worth solely in business achievements now found his greatest satisfaction in moments like these, supporting the people he loved through their challenges and celebrations. His company still thrived under his leadership, but he had learned to delegate more responsibilities, freeing himself to be present for the life happening in his own home. The car is here, Sophia announced, peeking through the window at the limousine Marcus had arranged for the occasion. This feels too fancy for a government appointment. Nothing is too fancy for Citizenship Day, Marcus replied firmly. This is one of the most important days of your lives. We're celebrating properly. As they made their way to the immigration office, Marcus reflected on how much his definition of success had evolved. 2 years ago, a successful day meant closing a profitable deal or outmaneuvering a business competitor. Now, success looked like Rosa's nervous excitement as she prepared to become a permanent resident of the country where her children could build their futures. The immigration office was crowded with families from dozens of countries, all there for various stages of their own immigration journeys. Marcus watched Rosa's face as she looked around at the diverse crowd, seeing herself reflected in their hopes and fears. Mrs. Martinez, a friendly immigration officer, appeared at their side. I'm Sarah Chun. I'll be handling your family's case today. Rosa stood up, her hands shaking slightly as she gathered their documents. Marcus had wanted to hire the most expensive immigration attorney in the city, but Rosa had chosen Sarah specifically because she had built her practice around helping families like theirs rather than wealthy individuals looking to buy their way into the country. Don't worry, Sarah said kindly, noticing Rosa's nervousness. This is the good appointment. You've already done all the hard work. Today is just about making it official. The processing took several hours, but Marcus found himself enjoying the wait. Instead of fidgeting with his phone or worrying about missed meetings, he listened to Sophia practice her English pronunciation with Emma and watched Miguel help an elderly man fill out paperwork in Spanish. This was what family looked like, he realized. People taking care of each other without expecting anything in return. Rosa Martinez? Sarah called finally, her voice carrying across the waiting room. Rosa stood up, and, without thinking about it, Marcus, Emma, Miguel, and Sophia all stood with her. They had started this journey as an employer and employee, but they would finish it as a family. Congratulations, Sarah said, her professional demeanor giving way to genuine warmth. Your permanent residency applications have been approved. Welcome to your new lives as legal permanent residents of the United States. Rosa burst into tears, and suddenly, everyone was hugging everyone else while immigration office staff and other waiting families applauded. Emma was crying too, and even Miguel, who usually kept his emotions carefully controlled, was wiping at his eyes. Thank you, Rosa whispered to Marcus as they held their new documents. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you for teaching me what family really means, Marcus replied, his own voice thick with emotion. As they left the immigration office, Marcus realized that this moment represented something much larger than just one family success story. Over the past 2 years, he had discovered that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios, but in the number of lives you could positively impact and the depth of relationships you could build. The Martinez Family Foundation had grown beyond his wildest expectations, not just in size, but in scope. What had started as a simple desire to help Rosa's family had evolved into a comprehensive support system that provided legal assistance, educational scholarships, small business loans, and family reunification services to immigrant families throughout the region. Miguel now worked part-time as the foundation's engineering consultant, helping immigrant contractors navigate building codes and safety regulations. Sophia had developed an English as a second language program that operated in 12 schools across the district. That evening, the Madison house was filled with celebration. Rosa's mother had flown in from El Salvador for the occasion, her first trip to the United States, and her first time seeing her daughter in over 3 years. The guest wing was full of friends from the foundation, colleagues from Emma's school who had volunteered on various projects, and business associates of Marcus's who had been inspired to start their own charitable initiatives. Speech. Speech, someone called out as the dinner wound down, and soon the entire gathering was chanting for Marcus to address the group. Marcus stood reluctantly, still uncomfortable being the center of attention for anything other than business achievements. But as he looked around the room at faces that represented so many different stories of hope and perseverance, he felt the familiar warmth that had become his favorite feeling. 3 years ago, he began, I thought success meant having the biggest house, the most expensive car, and the most impressive bank account. I measured my worth by how much I could buy and how many people worked for me. He paused, finding Rosa's face in the crowd and seeing her encouraging smile. Then, my daughter taught me that real success is measured by how we treat the people who matter to us. She taught me that wealth is only valuable if you use it to create opportunities for others. And Rosa taught me that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about the people who choose to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. Emma beamed at her father from across the room, proud of the man he had become and the family they had built together. The Martinez Family Foundation has helped over 300 families in the past 2 years, Marcus continued. But, more importantly, every family we've helped has taught us something about courage, determination, and the power of hope. Rosa's family came to this country with nothing but dreams and determination. Today, Miguel is a licensed engineer working on projects that will make our community stronger and safer. Sophia is teaching children who will grow up to change the world. And Rosa has become not just the heart of our family, but the inspiration for everything good we've accomplished. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't finished. I want to announce tonight that we're expanding the Foundation's mission. We're opening a new program called Bridges to Tomorrow that will provide full scholarships for the children of immigrant families to attend college, along with mentoring and support services to help them succeed. Miguel will be directing the engineering scholarship program, and Sophia will head up the education track. Rosa gasped, her hands flying to her mouth in surprise. Marcus had told her about the scholarship program, but she hadn't known that her children would be leading it. But, most importantly, Marcus continued, his voice growing softer and more personal. I want everyone here to know that the best thing I ever did as a businessman wasn't any deal I closed or any company I acquired. The best thing I ever did was learn to listen to my daughter when she told me I was wrong, and learn to see Rosa not as an employee, but as a member of my family. As the applause died down and conversations resumed, Marcus found himself standing on the back patio with Emma, looking out at the garden where Rosa's herbs still grew alongside the roses Catherine had planted years ago. Mom would have loved tonight, Emma said quietly. She would have loved Rosa and Miguel and Sophia, Marcus agreed. And she would have been proud of you for making me see what was right in front of me all along. Emma leaned against her father's shoulder. Do you think we've done enough? For Rosa's family, I mean. Marcus considered the question seriously. I don't think you can ever do enough for people you love. But I think we've created something that will keep growing and helping people long after we're gone. And I think that's what your mother would have wanted, not just helping one family, but creating a system that helps many families. As the evening continued with music and laughter and stories told in multiple languages, Marcus realized that his journey from cruel employer to loving family member was complete. The foundation would continue to grow, Rosa's family would continue to thrive in their new country, and Emma would go to college knowing that she had the power to change the world by simply caring enough to speak up for what was right. The billionaire who had once mocked his maid's cooking had discovered that the most valuable lesson in life couldn't be bought or sold or negotiated. It could only be learned through the difficult but transformative process of opening your heart to people who had every reason to hate you, but who chose instead to teach you how to love. Standing in his garden, surrounded by the family he had chosen and who had chosen him in return, Marcus Madison finally understood what his wife had tried to tell him years ago, that the measure of a life well lived isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you give away, and in how many people are better off because you existed. The house was full of light and laughter, and for the first time since Catherine's death, it felt like home. For strangers. Not strangers, Marcus corrected. People. People who deserve the same chances we're giving Miguel and Sophia. People who are working hard and making sacrifices for their families, just like you did. Miguel leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Marcus's generosity. You're going to help other families like ours? I'm going to try, Marcus said. I've learned a lot about what it means to be separated from the people you love, and about how wealth can be used to bring families together instead of just buying things that don't matter. Emma looked at her father with pride and love shining in her eyes. Mom would be so proud of you, Dad. Marcus nodded, feeling Catherine's presence in the warm kitchen surrounded by the family they had built from kindness and second chances. I hope so. I think she would have loved having Miguel and Sophia here, would have loved watching Rosa teach us all how to make pupusas and listening to your stories about El Salvador. She would have, Rosa said with certainty. She always told me that home isn't a place, it's the people who love you. And she would have welcomed my children as her own. As the evening continued with stories and laughter and plans for the future, Marcus reflected on how completely his life had changed. The ruthless businessman who had measured success only in profit margins had discovered something infinitely more valuable, the profound joy of being part of something larger than himself. The pupusas were perfectly golden. The kitchen was filled with warmth and conversation. And, for the first time since Catherine's death, Marcus Madison felt like he was exactly where he belonged. Rosa looked around the kitchen that had become her domain over the years, thinking about all the meals she had prepared here, all the conversations she had overheard between Marcus and Emma, all the quiet moments when she had felt the loneliness of being separated from her own children. The idea that this could become a place where all the people she loved could gather seemed too wonderful to believe. I would like to talk to Miguel and Sophia, she said finally. But, Mr. Madison, even if this doesn't work out, what you're offering to do, just the fact that you would try, it means everything to me. Marcus felt that unfamiliar warmth in his chest again, the feeling of doing something purely because it was right rather than because it advanced his business interests or social status. It's the least I can do, he said simply. No, Rosa said firmly, her voice stronger now. It's not the least. It's the most. It's more kindness than I ever expected to receive from anyone. Emma smiled through happy tears. I'd like to understand the person who has been taking care of my daughter all these years while I was too blind to see it. But the breakfast can wait, Marcus said firmly. Business can wait. Everything can wait while I figure out how to be a better person. Emma smiled through her tears, seeing a glimpse of the father she had missed for so long. Mom would have loved this, she whispered. Marcus nodded, feeling Catherine's presence in the room like a gentle reminder of who he had once been, and who he could still choose to become. The expensive watch on his wrist ticked away minutes that would once have felt precious and urgent. But, for the first time in years, he had found something more valuable than time or money or business success. He had found his way back to his humanity, and it had taken his 15-year-old daughter's courage to show him the path. Emma said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Last month, when you were in New York for that merger, I was feeling really sad about Mom. Rosa made me this amazing soup that her own mother used to make for her when she was little. It was the most comforting, delicious thing I'd ever tasted. It made me feel better in a way I hadn't felt since Mom died. Marcus found himself remembering Catherine's voice again, this time recalling a conversation they'd had shortly after Rosa started working for them. Catherine had been impressed by Rosa's dedication and skill, commenting on how rare it was to find someone who truly cared about their work rather than just going through the motions. The truth is, Dad, Emma said, her voice beginning to crack with emotion, Rosa's food doesn't just taste good. It tastes like love. It tastes like someone who cares about the people she's feeding. And maybe if you actually paid attention instead of just complaining, you'd taste that too. The dining room fell into complete silence except for the soft ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expensive suit and perfect grooming suddenly seeming less important than they had moments before. His daughter's words had stripped away the protective armor of wealth and status, leaving him face to face with a truth he had been avoiding for years. He looked at Rosa, really looked at her for the first time in recent memory. He saw the dignity in her posture despite years of undeserved criticism. He saw the care in her eyes when she looked at Emma, the genuine affection that went far beyond professional obligation. He saw a woman who had left everything behind to build a better life, who worked tirelessly to provide for her family, and who had somehow found room in her heart to care for his family as well. Emma wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, but she didn't look away from her father. Rosa isn't just our maid, Dad. She's the person who makes this house feel like home. And if you can't see that, then maybe the problem isn't with her cooking. Maybe the problem is that you've forgotten how to appreciate the people who matter. The words hung in the air between them, a challenge and a plea all at once. Marcus felt the weight of years of thoughtless cruelty settling on his shoulders, and, for the first time in a very long time, he wasn't sure what to say.